I am Andrew
That's what I love.
Mr. Mallard. Join me as always, Mr. Chief of Morale himself, Bud Copeland. Bud, how are you this evening before we get
So the point being is good golfers are a fucking dime a dozen. And we saw it in full swing that the line of demarcation between...
Are you ready, Bud? Are you ready for the players? Are you ready to make money? Are you ready to try to beat me?
I didn't do my homework this week.
Welcome in, everybody. Divots and Pivots here on Tuesday night on the Fantasy Sports Corporation. I am Andrew LeDuc, a.k.a. Mr. Mallard. And look, we have European team picks finally in this week. The matches will be set. The trash talk can begin, and we got a couple weeks to just live in it and build up the hype. Building up the hype, as always, Bud Copeland next to me here. But by the way, if you haven't already, check out his daily morning videos out on Facebook and Instagram. I believe he posts them there as well. Bud Copeland or at this Buds for you on Twitter. His daily videos are just an absolute smash. So you're gonna want to check those out. He just talks about random happenings, random news in the day, golf related and some non-golf related, just good stuff. And it seems like we might have lost him there for a second. He'll be back. He always comes back. But let's get into it. First of all, it's fantasy football season now. I don't know about you guys. I did my fantasy draft this week. My fantasy draft. I'm in 20 leagues. A lot of those are best balls, though, so they don't really count. But I did my home league draft this weekend with the boys. We had to do it online this weekend just because, unfortunately, there was some people traveling for our wedding. So we went online for this week instead of the live draft, which was a bummer, but it still worked out. Your boy still got what I think is a good team, a little risky at quarterback, but my wide receivers are fire, and I'm poised to take down the rest of the league, the rest of the boys. So wish me luck there. I hope you guys who are all out there drafting your fantasy football teams this week, in the next couple of days, good luck. Check us out on Twitter, on Facebook, YouTube. We have all the fantasy football content as well. But let's get into the Ryder Cup. That's what we all came here to listen to. And the Europeans have made their selections. So just to get us caught up on who was already qualified and who's good to go, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Bob McIntyre, Victor Hovland, Tyrrell Hatton, and Matthew Fitzpatrick were already in. But we now have Tommy Fleetwood. Actually, I think I had some of those backwards. This is alphabetical, but Tommy Fleetwood, Sepp Straka, Justin Rose, Shane Lowry, Nikolai Højgaard, and Ludvig Åberg round out the European team set to take on the U.S. In just about, 2 weeks, two and a half weeks coming up for the Ryder Cup. So we'll get into that. But I'll tell you what, this doesn't really surprise me, this lineup, these picks that were made. If you've been listening to the show, we've been talking about Tommy Fleetwood all year. We've been talking about Sepp Straka. We've been talking about Justin Rose. Rose has had a nice little redemption season here. Not that he really needed. He's always kind of been around, but he had a bit of a bigger season than expected this year. Shane Lowry, who's always in the mix. He's a player. He's a baller, if you want to say, and he's going to bring the energy for this European team, I think. So I like that pick. And then Ludvig Åberg and Nikolai Højgaard. These are the two guys. They've made a couple appearances, more than a couple, but a few appearances on the PGA this year. But most of their play this year was on the DP World Tour, where Højgaard had himself a great year, especially down the stretch. He was in, every time I kind of checked in on the DP World Tour, he was right at the top of the leaderboard or in a playoff. And then Ludvig Åberg as well made some noise down the stretch on the PGA Tour as well, being a lot of fans' favorites to get some wins. So not surprised to see them in. So that's the European team, though. They're ready to go. They're going to bring us in. Here comes Bud back in. But Wi-Fi issues?
No.
Power button.
I honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea what happened. Actually, I think it might have been a Wi-Fi connectivity thing. And then my camera wouldn't sync back up to my computer because I refused to use cords and it was wirelessly connected. Mea culpa. What'd I miss, class?
You didn't miss much. I was quickly talking
You
about
were
my
literally
fantasy.
introducing me. I could hear you like somebody slipping away, by a rogue wave. I could just like hear.
And you know what? It was kind of the least awkward and the cleanest introduction I've done for you in a while too, and that was just
Oh, and I missed it.
just sailed away.
Do you want
But
do you want to do it again?
no,
No? Okay.
because
So we're already into the show. We're
once you
on.
strike lightning once, you stick with it. You don't try it again.
You don't. I get what you're saying. You don't strike. Well, okay. Takes no rocket surgeon. No. Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Morale is high. If I haven't mentioned that yet, I gotta say, if you missed it, the Walker Cup delivered. It was another classic. The funny thing is, overall, so for the uninitiated, Walker Cup every other year, amateur golf, Ryder Cup. That's basically what it is, and it actually predates the Ryder Cup by a couple of years. This started in 1922, and this marked the 100th. I don't know if they're doing it by calendar years or occurrences or whatever, but 1923, they played at the Old Course at St. Andrews for the first time. And this was kind of, they were all wearing these little emblems that said 100. But we had a stacked team when it comes to the WAGR, which is like the World Amateur Golf Ranking System. We had like the numbers 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. We had a bunch of the top 20 on our side, and we were 3 down. They play 2 days. They do alternate shot in the morning, so that's foursomes. We're going to do a vocabulary lesson because they're going to say foursomes and 4-ball, and everybody's going to be like,
needed for this Ryder Cup.
What's the difference? And literally, foursomes means you have 4 humans playing, and there are only 2 balls. 4-ball is 4-ball. There are 4 balls in play. So there you go. 4-ball is best ball. Foursomes is alternate shot. There will be a pop quiz at the end of the show. But in Walker Cup, they do foursomes in the morning, singles in the afternoon. They do 8 singles matches on Saturday, and all 10 players play on Sunday. Mm-hmm. We were down by 3. The boys rallied. Stuart Hagstead, Stu Baby, came through again. This is his 4th consecutive Walker Cup victory. If you don't know who Stu is, look him up. He's got a pretty good wiki page that gives an overview, but essentially he was a great college golfer who decided to stay amateur. He's the closest thing, I'm not going to say to a modern day Bobby Jones, but he's pretty damn close. He's won a couple of mid amateurs. He's been to 4 U.S. Opens. He's 13 U.S. amateur events, and he's obviously 4 Walker Cups deep. But in his interview, he kind of let it slip that I guess Tiger Woods sent him a little text message Saturday night to the team room, got the boys going, and they came out Sunday morning, took the morning session 3-1, shortened that lead to 1. And then once the momentum swings that way, basically whoever comes out the gate hot in singles seems to set the tone. That was the Americans. This guy, Gordon Sargent, Gordo, if you look him up, he
talked about him early on in the season because he was the was it the Masters that everyone was expecting him to pop at?
Good job. He was the guy who got the special invitation from the Masters. He won the NCAA individual title as a freshman in 2022 at Vanderbilt. He's, 5'7", maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. The guy's tiny, and he looks like he's here to do your taxes, but he can hit the ball a freaking mile. I don't know how he does it. He doesn't look like he's swinging at all, but that club head speed gets it. For example, on Sunday, he was already 3-0 in his matches and the number 1 ranked amateur in the world. And on Sunday, going into 18, he was tied. Or no, he was 1 up at that point. Apologies. He took the road hole after a good situation on 16, which had a lot of commentators going, really? Y'all are going to swap 3-footers on the 16th of a Sunday? But that's neither here nor there. Gordo pumped one out there, 345 pin high on the 18th at the Old Course, which if anybody's familiar, that's not an easy 2-putt, but if you're pin high, then you can get home in 2 fairly without, too much drama, guys like this. And that was with a 3-wood. So this little hitter is a name you're going to want to remember, Gordon Sargent. But you are correct, sir. He got that special invitation from the Masters, and Augusta National just kind of said this was a special situation. They're not trying to set a precedent there. But at the time, I even kind of speculated maybe they are, because that was pre-truce in the PGA Tour live battles. And I thought maybe this was a wink, wink, nod, nod to, hey, we're going to start inviting the NCAA individual champ to the Masters every year as an incentive for some of these college kids to stick around. But I don't think that was the case. I think that's just me hunting for a story that I wish was true. But I guess we'll never know with this live PGA merger, non-merger truce agreement coming up. But the Walker Cup delivered. We delivered another win. And I got to say, it kicks off for me, international play season magnificently. We got the Ryder Cup, obviously, at the end of the month. Just before that will be the Solheim Cup. We're going to take a look at that next week and educate you all on that competition, its history, its past, its players, and some familiar names you might have heard before, especially on this show. So Walker Cup consumed most of my Labor Day weekend. I got to admit. What about you?
Yeah, so I was in the mountains for Labor Day weekend. I went up there all day Saturday, spent the night, came back on Sunday, and just chilled. Something about going up to North Conway, New Hampshire, and just going up to North Conway, New Hampshire, and you it feels like you step away from the world. There's not a worry in the world. You pop around in shops, you walk about 2 miles an hour, looking at everything and buying nothing, and then you sit down and you have a beer, you have some lunch, you get up, you walk around again, you sit down, you have a beer and some lunch.
Where'd you have a beer and some lunch in North Conway, New Hampshire?
A couple different places. So actually, I'd gone to a place I surprisingly had never been to before, which shocked me because it was an Irish bar that I didn't realize was there. But it was May Kelly's next to Delaney's. So everyone knows Delaney's Hole in the Wall in North Conway for people who frequent North Conway. But May Kelly's is this yellow house-looking place literally right next to it, and the place was awesome. Nice. It was exactly what you expect to have an Irish bar. You walk in and there's not a blank space on the wall. They just fit everything in that they can. There's random stuff that's on the floor. It's just, walking around hallways. It's literally like someone's house just converted to a bar, and it's fantastic.
There's an upstairs breakfast cafe there as well that has that same kind of vibe feeling. When we were there last time, Stairway Cafe. Yeah. Thanks. Upstairs Cafe. That's rolls right off the tongue.
You almost nailed it by accident.
The last time we were there, we popped into Horse Feather, which used to be like a must-have stop, and they're renovating or something was going on upstairs where it was closed. It definitely looked like they were renovating or doing something. Yeah. And so we just hopped into a little booth downstairs, and without the ambiance of their upstairs bar overlooking kind of the main thoroughfare with a decent shot of the mountains and everything, sketch.
Oh, really? I don't mind the downstairs bar.
Too dingy for me.
But I'm fine with dingy. I'm cool with dingy.
That's fair.
But it is the downstairs bar. It's a smaller bar, and I will say I prefer sitting at the bar downstairs than sitting in a booth. So I get that.
So good. Glad we both had nice Labor Day weekends. Back to you in the studio. So a couple of things real quick, because we do have, like you said, Luke Donald came out and made his captain's picks. And and I was way off. I don't know, for some reason I was a week off. I guess this is a little sooner than they usually do it. I was reading up, doing a little research on this, and I've been listening to everything out there. And so part of the point system for European qualification, the timing was part of that deal. And we'll get into that when we dive into that later. But I was looking at a very fortunate on this day in sports history that kind of has an amalgamation of what I forced down your gullet anyways, was the Walker Cup. Hey, how are you doing? Dude, you catch the Walker Cup?
Which no, I did not. So I'm glad you had all the information on it.
Oh, I was at the in-laws farm, and I was just watching it on my phone the whole time. I was hooked, man. It's match play is different.
Yes.
International play is always different, and then these kind of top tier team events that have been going on for over 100 years, and it's USA versus Great Britain and Ireland. So it's not like it's exactly like the Ryder Cup where they expanded the continental Europe in 79, 78, somewhere in there. But no, a rare on this day in sports history, a guy who did fairly well at the Walker Cup himself, Bobby Jones. I think he was on 5 winning teams. He was playing captain on 2 of them. Just add that along to his people. Some get hung up on the 13 majors, but one of those majors was the U.S. Amateur, the 1925 U.S. Amateur that finished on this day. But the guy that he was going up against was actually, and this is the only time this has ever happened in the history of the U.S. Amateur. And you would know this if you followed me on this Buds for You on Instagram Reels. I heard you give me a little shout out there, and I appreciate that.
Oh, you did hear that. Perfect. Okay.
That was on my way. I was like fading off into the wireless Wi-Fi vacuum.
Because on my end, you were just looking down, and it looked like you were ignoring me, and I was like, "Oh, fantastic!"
I was pouring a drink, and then when I looked up and I realized it looks like I'm just either went full Biden or I was staring at my crotch, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" I had to pop out. But he won the tournament in 1925 U.S. Amateur. It was his first of going back to back in his series of 5, or it was his second in going back to back in his series of 5. The guy he faced off in his final match was a guy named Watts Gunn. First of all, talk about first team all name in the history of sports. Watts Gunn, Wattsgunn. And they were both members. This is the only time this has ever happened in the history of the U.S. Amateur. And I think to this day, still, it would probably be even rarer air to have, two finalists from the same golf club. Watts Gunn is a Georgia guy, and he played out of East Lake Golf Club. And he actually, even though Bobby Jones is only a couple years older than him, Bobby was almost like a mentor to this guy. And rumor has it, Watts, kind of said, how you doing the morning of the match and everything. And Bobby just was like, I'm going to beat the hell out of you out there today. Like, they were close friends, but that just showed like the edge that Bobby Jones had. And he did go on to win. But earlier in that tournament, this is the mind boggling stat, since we're getting into the kind of the match play international game series of our season. They used to play 36 hole matches back then. They had fewer qualification spots, which makes sense. I mean, there was, less of a volume. I mean, I think something like 10,000 people tried to qualify for the US Open this year or something like that. They played 36 hole matches. And in his first round match, Watts Gunn won 15 consecutive holes. Not didn't lose. He won. He outright won 15 consecutive match play holes, which set a record that I was digging a little earlier. I don't think that it's been beaten yet. If I'm wrong, somebody at me and let me know. But
that would be outrageous if it has.
Consecutive holes, only to have to go up against, Bobby Jones in the final. So here's to Watts Gunn and well, I was going to say all the Yellow Jackets, but he was also the first Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket to win a national title in that storied program's history. Back to you in the studio, Andrew.
That's be wise. There we go. That was an accent. So funny enough.
Checking a fucking text.
No, my phone started ringing. I didn't want my mic to pick it up.
But did you miss the first 5 minutes of the show? I think we're beyond technical difficulties here.
We are. It's so funny because you mentioned the Walker Cup. They were playing the old course. So I'm scrolling through Facebook today, and a guy I went to college with posting a picture of himself standing on the old bridge there at about our time was like 7 a.m. our time. So he played there this morning. I guess he's on some sort of European golf trip right now. And he played the old course this morning and started off my morning quite envious of you. So Casey, if you're out there watching, I doubt you are. Hope you had fun.
And for the fans of the game, that bridge he's referring to is the Swilken Bridge, which is the famous bridge on 18 that goes over the, wait for it, Swilken Burn, which if you're not familiar with geography, burn is just another word for like creek or whatever inlet. And if you go on Google Maps, you can even see it. The people don't realize that how close to the ocean that, or I guess the Irish Sea or the Scottish Sea, don't fucking at me on this one, but huge body of water, massive body of water. This golf course is, which is why a characteristics of a true links course is coastal with all of the accoutrement there. No, can you hear me still?
I can hear you, but your screen did freeze, which is funny.
I know. It's a good look too.
Right before your screen froze, my entire screen went black. So I don't know what's going on tonight.
It's a red letter day for the folks here at this or on Divots and Pivots.
Yeah, now you
make sure you timestamp this and send it to the team. But you can still hear me.
So I can still hear you crystal clear, but your picture is anything. Who
needs this magnificent mug? All right, we'll plow right through these technical challenges that seem to be continuing to happen. So yeah,
it's fine.
Love that your buddy's over there on the Swilken Bridge having the time of his life. One day we'll do a show from there. So that's on this day in sports history, especially golf history. What's next?
So while you were right before you came back, I was just quickly running through the European picks. Because that's what I had on my screen and I wasn't expecting you to disappear. So that's what I went with off the start here. We ran through them. We'll run through them again real fast here with Bud on the screen here. Obviously we have Rory, John, Bobby McIntyre, Victor Hovland, Tyrrell Hatton, and Matthew Fitzpatrick, Tommy Fleetwood, Sepp Straka, Justin Rose, Shane Lowry, Nikolai Højgaard, and Ludvig Aberg. I think I got those two names right.
Nikolai Højgaard and Ludvig Aberg. Yeah, you nailed it. Both names that you've heard on this show. I've been saying for months now, beware the brothers Højgaard. And I think his brother Rasmus might actually be higher on the points list technically.
So he was. I did see that. I think he was top 10 actually.
Yeah, but Nikolai is the one that's in form, and so for European qualification, they switched it up a little bit this year. I was looking into this, and not only did they it used to be super duper top heavy with the distribution of points, and they kind of leveled that out to have basically like 5 different tiers of points. One for majors, then one for tournaments of a certain size of budget by prize money, and then those points within get distributed throughout the field. So it's not like what the Americans do, which the Americans is essentially for $1,000, for every $1,000 you earn in money, you get a point, and that's I think doubled in the majors, or it's $1,500, or 1.5 points for every 1,000 in the bigger tournaments. But essentially, it's much more direct crossover. In the European side, they do that, but they do that for only 3 players from the European Tour, and then so the top 3 point earners straight up on the DP World Tour with the similar kind of tiered out point system as I described earlier in such clarity, they're automatically in. And then the other 3 automatic qualifiers come from the top 3 world points list. And the way they calculate that is essentially they take the players, and for all the official world golf ranking points that you earn in these events that are qualification events outside of the DP World Tour, you start getting points. And I think inside, I think they just take basically your world golf ranking, which means if you're over on the PGA Tour, you're still getting points and you're still getting recognized. Those top 3 get it. And then they get 6 captains picks. And this is where things get interesting. In years past, it's been as little as 2. It's been, it's fluctuated between 3 and 4. I think it was like Patty Harrington was saying they needed at least 4 or 3, but the number has floated back and forth. 6 seems to be a lot, but at the same time, when they made the adjustments to the point system, they wanted to open up flexibility to account for form. And so that's what we ended up with. And on that world golf ranking points list, obviously, if you're one of the top 3 from the European points, you don't factor into that. They just go on to the next person in the list, which is the case with John Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and I want to say Victor Hovland.
Yeah, that's Robert McIntyre is actually number 3
on the European points list.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bob McIntyre, but not Bob Fitzgerald or whatever the fuck I called him last week.
Yeah.
Apologies,
no, so Victor Hovland was 18th in points. But what you all said makes
which
sense.
Points? European points?
European points.
Yes. Okay. So he got in on the world point side.
Correct. Yeah. So on the site I'm looking at just shows European points and oh, I'm sorry, there's world points. If I just toggled, you're right. Victor Hovland's 3 in world points.
All right.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I'm telling you, very little makes my socks roll up and down like international team golf. The Players Championship, I even enjoy Ryder Cups more than I'd sacrifice the PGA for an extra Ryder Cup. No, I wouldn't literally sacrifice it, but I get more up for this than I do maybe the PGA or the Masters, depending on the kind of year it is, because we get to see a really cool venue usually when it's overseas. Now that they've opened it up to the continental side of Europe, we've seen Valderrama in Spain in the late 90s. We've seen some fairly classic courses like the K Club in years past. But being down in Rome, and actually, quick fun fact about this this host city of ours, and then I got a question for you, because we've named the guys who made the team automatically. We've named the guys. Yep. We'll run through them again, but then there's the Keegan Bradleys of the European side. And I want to ask you about them too. Fun fact about golf in Rome. They're going back to the course where they played the Italian Open. The US Open is not unique. Most developed, if you've got a major golf organization, a national golf organization in your country, you have a national golf open usually. So that's why like the Canadian Open was such a big deal this year when a Canadian won it. This guy's not Italian, but Adrian Meronk won the Italian Open earlier this year at Marco Simone. And it's a pretty short course, by the way. It's like 6,400 yards. Even if they stretch it out, you can't really just snap your fingers and create 500 or 600 more yards, I don't think. So it is going to put a premium on driving straight and, hitting shots. But go back 100 years or so. And when golf was in the Olympics back in 1900 and 1904, they had planned to have it again in 1908. Those 1908 games were actually scheduled for Rome. And then in 1906, Mount Vesuvius erupted. The Italian authorities had to put all their resources into, rebuilding. And so the Olympics got scooped up by the Brits. And when the Brits had it lined up for London, the day before, like 2 or 3 days before the golf competition was supposed to tee off, they canceled it. They pulled the plug. there was like discrepancies in politics behind the scenes. People in the RNA were pissed off, and on the British side saying like, this is stupid. We're lumping in, Scotland, Ireland, and England all as part of United Kingdom or Great Britain when only sending 4 players. But like Germany gets to send 4 teams of 4, just, they didn't like the way it was weighted out. And it was right on the heels of the amateur, one of their big events. And so they just pulled the plug on it. And that's when we got our 100 years or so gap in golf. So going back to Rome, take 2.
How do you acquire the information that because you still surprise me, even though every week I know you're going to come with something.
You didn't know that about the golf history in the Olympics. It's super fascinating about like the politics behind why they just said we're not going to bless this. Basically, the RNA just said we're not going to bless this event, and when that happened, it would be like trying to have the Olympics here in which I think it is coming to LA in pretty soon.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it would be like if all of a sudden when the Olympics showed up, the USGA and the PGA and the governing bodies were like, nah, we're not going to help you out here. I mean, you can't really do the event if you don't have the blessing of the home authorities there. So anyways, there's a little Rome golf history for you. We are going back to Marco Simone, where I said Adrian Meronk won earlier this year. And Adrian Meronk was not one of the 12 names that Luke Donald had said at his presser in any way, shape, or form. I mean, he might have said that he was overlooked or whatever, but I don't think he would have brought that into a press conference. Do you know anything about Adrian Meronk, and do you think he was snubbed?
I've played him before in fantasy. I have. Because he's lined up good for tournaments before, but do I know his career history and things like that? No, I don't know too much about Adrian Meronk. I don't feel like he was snubbed. I get it. He won here early this year. I honestly look at this list of the world points. I know it's not exactly a jump around, but I'm just looking at some of the guys who were higher up on the world points that didn't get selected. I'm good with the team. Honestly, like no one's maybe Seamus Power, like he's a name who seemed to pop up a lot, but on the PGA this year, but it also seemed to pop up in a way that he never really met expectations. So yeah, I'm kind of good. I don't really feel like anyone got snubbed on the European team. I don't know how you feel, but I think Luke Donald nailed it.
I think he was snubbed. I think I think he was snubbed the same way that Keegan was snubbed, in the sense of that's the word that we use. It's not, I don't think there was disrespect or anything like that. I think it is just, there's always going to be the next person on the list, or just people who you kind of thought were a shoe in, and then it didn't go your way for one reason or another. The thing that's mind boggling to me is, I don't know too much about, listening to a lot of the former Ryder Cuppers in Europe talk about their experiences and how it's different because they get into that team room and then automatically that's when the brotherhood starts. That's when the camaraderie of like, it's us versus them, American exceptionalism, is not as great as they make it out to be. And they've got a 30-year winning streak going on right now. So my thought would be having a guy on the team who literally won at the highest level on this course previously in the season. Unless this guy nailed somebody's girlfriend or wife, I don't know why he's not in it over a Shane Lowry. I don't know if Shane Lowry, who admittedly has not, he's even said it himself, he's not played as well as he really should have this year. And he's got a couple of good finishes, but overall he knows he's got room for improvement. Sure, he's the life and soul. I don't think he's JT-esque because his record isn't there, is like JT's is in international play. But that's where I think if you had to, not a mulligan, but I think somebody also mentioned that would be 5 rookies on the team. And I do get where that's almost half your team. And to have that lack of experience might be a bigger deal. I don't know. But I think Adrian Meronk did get a little bit snubbed. I don't think Shane Lowry should have gotten the pick. But I can understand why he did when you were looking at that list and who can we reach for, because he is more of a passion guy than a technical golfer. And he's been there, he's been in that room before. And I think he's got the gravitas, because I would love to be a fly on the wall and find out. This is a good, by the way, blurry still of my face.
I know it's just hanging out there.
It's pretty good. But I'd love to be a fly on the wall when Justin Rose is given the talking stick, because he seems like a guy where I mean, like, does he get loud? Does he throw the baby powder up like LeBron? Is he animated? Does he have theme music? He's just the kind of one that I would just it'd be fun to find out what kind of guy he is.
Oh, it'd be fun to find out, but that's the way you described Shane Lowry is while you were on your little lost in space moment at the start of the show. That was exactly how I described Shane Lowry. Is that he's definitely going to be the guy that brings the energy and brings that pop of I guess that fire that you need in this. And so I think that's part of why he's there. But I think you nailed it in that having that many rookies. We talked about it last week when picking out the U.S. team, in that a lot of the reason why they picked JT was because they needed experience. They had a lot of, not necessarily rookies in the sense of younger, inexperienced golfers, but just when it comes to the Ryder Cup, rookies when it comes to the Ryder Cup. So it makes sense to me. I fully agree. I get it. Before we get into any more, we're going to quickly take a break, listen to some Underdog here, and hopefully get Bud's camera back to being crystal clear, just like all of his takes.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever, and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code DIVPIV to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
That's right, and there's Bud back. That's the second we were going to commercial. It's like it knew and said, "Oh yeah, no, we're gonna get rid of the blur now." Well, this is just one of those nights.
I gotta say, man, I gotta fire this intern, or maybe promote them and start paying them a little bit more to incentivize the setup, because the production support around this place is garbage, and that's the home studio. I'm not referring to our corporate parents up top. Shouts to Fantasy Sports Corporation for letting us play in your sandbox. No, I just kind of ditched the camera, and so this is like the old-fashioned camera that you get in your actual device. It's not anything.
Oh, nice. That's what you did. Okay.
Yeah. No, I can definitely tell the difference, and it's bothering me, but we're not here to talk about that. Adrian Marunk, I want to bring this guy back up one more time, because if you only focus on the American Tour, then you miss out on some of these guys. But if you listen to Divots and Pivots, then you hear about him a lot, because anytime I'd see this guy's name in the field, I picked him because I saw his win earlier at the Italian Open. And that's actually one of 3 national opens that he's won in like the last 18 months. I think he won the Australian Open, the Irish Open previously. So it is kind of mind boggling to me that he's left out. And I'm going to leave it at that. As soon as we went to break, I just talked myself right out of accepting the Shane Lowry argument, and kind of thinking much more in the terms of I don't know if I can find an end to that thread that I find satisfactory. I think that thing's just going to flicker in the wind until the actual action starts, and I'm going to have to just accept that Shane Lowry. I love Shane Lowry. You know me. I love playing Shane Lowry. I lean into him a lot throughout the season because he was consistent. He had a ton of top 20s. He was always around, but he didn't actually get it all together in those big moments. And so, depending on what you get at the Ryder Cup, this is going to be the one that they look back on and suggest. My question to you is, were you surprised to see this Ludwig Aberg kid get the nod as quickly as he did? I mean, he just came on the scene earlier this year. We were talking about him.
Yeah, so I know he just came on the scene, but I'm not totally surprised, just because he's been just such a hot name like right down the stretch here. And he's performed decently well over on the PGA well, and I don't think he was. I'm looking for him in the world points right now to see exactly where he compared to everyone else.
He would not have. He hadn't been around long enough to accumulate a ton of points.
Okay, yeah. So I would say, but I feel like when he did show up, he was a known name when he came over to play on the PGA for reasons, because he was showing out in his opportunities. Yeah, there he is, 58th in points. So he accumulated 93 points. But he's just one of those examples where, like you said earlier, he's a form guy right now. He's in great form. I'm in the wrong window. There we go. He's in great form, and he's got some pop on him as far as fandom right now. So I think they're going for that kind of confident riding the hot hands at the moment. It's like they have a mixture. They're riding some hot hands and Nikolai Højgaard, and I'll never say it, and Adberg, and then they get their rah guys like Shane Lowry, and then their kind of teams captain steady guys, and your Rory and your Rahm and your Rose, like it seems like they purposely balance this team out in a specific way.
I'm super excited to watch this guy. Aberg, going back to his amateur career, he was on a winning, I want to say Eisenhower. Was it Eisenhower Cup?
What's up, David?
Yeah, Swedish team at the European Amateur Team Championship. So going back to 2019, he was on the winning Swedish team at the 2019 European Team Amateur Championship. Mm-hmm. He's a 2-time Ben Hogan Award winner, which that's another one of the National Collegiate Golf Player of the Year. The only other guy to win it twice, I think, is John Rahm. And so, and I've heard him be compared to that level of talent, totally different looking game, but that level of talent time and time again. And Luke Donald at his presser was talking about how, so Aberg also went nuts and went very low on Sunday to win this last weekend. I want to say, and they were in the Swiss Alps or some shit. It was gorgeous. But Matty Fitzpatrick, not exactly a schlub, was in the lead coming down the stretch, and Aberg just kind of blacked out, went low, and took the title for his first professional win. Rumor has it he had already made the team even before that, because they're saying it's like Rory-esque, the way that this guy is just talented. And going back to earlier this year, Luke Donald said he played a practice round with Aberg at one of the tournaments, one of the many pro tournaments Aberg got qualified or was invited to for his various accolades, and just said immediately he kind of knew he was on the radar. And then Tommy Fleetwood, when they were interviewing him, Fairway Jesus, I love Tommy Fleetwood. I hate rooting against him, but I'm glad that he doesn't have the other half. Francisco Molinari, they were killers in Paris, going 5-0-0 together. But Fairway Jesus is going to be back, and he was even saying that the scuttlebutt on Aberg the entire time has been that this kid could be a Ryder Cupper this year if he chooses to go pro, which everybody kind of knew at that point he was going to.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up his full season right now as far as his results, and it's not happening as quick as possible. But Aberg, Texas Tech alum, so that's so that is something I'm curious. And do a lot of, maybe I'm just naive to it or ignorant to it, do a lot of these international guys, do they play here in the States for college?
Tons.
Like, is that, I was assuming they did.
You go down big time Division I programs and even other levels, because college athletics is a wonderful way for international students to earn a spot or get a spot over here for cultural exchange purposes, of course. No, but when it comes to recruiting talent, for damn sure. Golf is a global collegiate game here in the States.
Is there anything internationally that is obviously not as equal if they're all doing it, but close to the same like opportunity? It's U.S. collegiate golf, like when it comes to in Europe or anywhere else.
No.
There's really no other comparison, except maybe the Live Golf Tour now.
I mean, collegiate golf is like kind of like college football over here, where there are other avenues to get to the NFL. That is, you want to go early in the draft. You want to be a name. You want to be a brand. Say college football season, anyways. Then you want to go to a big name program and get that exposure. Similar-ish, you look at some of the facilities at these D1 programs now, and their resorts got nothing on these fucking places, and they're huge. They're accommodating. That's the whole, and some of them are starting to get in that NIL game. It's not obviously at the levels where it is with the other sports, but it's there. And it's going to be another thing that keeps them around. But to answer your question, no, there's nothing globally that could really compete as far as what it provides for opportunity and resources and exposure, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to like international competitions, there was the Walker Cup we talked about. That's Great Britain and Ireland versus the United States. There's what's called the Palmer Cup, and named for for, of course, the king, Arnie. And that is a team competition. And I want to say it's like 12 dudes and chicks from the United States, 12 dudes and chicks from around the world. And it's like international versus the United States. And it's both, I want to say like there's like a team and an individual winner or something like that. And then I mentioned the Eisenhower Cup or the Eisenhower Trophy just a minute ago. That one goes way back as well. And that's much more of a 3 or 4 person global team competition where, 30, 40 countries can send a team, and that also has a team and individual component. So there is a vast thriving network of the amateur game, and that just goes to show you how desperate I can get when it comes to scratching the golf itch.
Yeah, you're watching Corn Ferry, DP, you're watching Walker Cup.
I'm going to be all over that Corn Ferry final next year. I'm not too concerned with it this year because of what's going on right now.
Oh, the one that's going to be on Barstool?
No, that was earlier this year. They did a great job. It was a fun broadcast.
Right. I'm sorry. That was earlier. That did happen.
That was
already.
earlier this year. They did a very good job. And I want to say it was a really fun broadcast. And I want to say it was almost, I don't know. I mean, nobody's ever going to say is that like the waste management, because every tournament's unique. But when you do have to, the Zurich is the team event. I can't remember which one it is out west that does Stableford points. There's certain these tournaments that are not top tier events that need an identity for whatever reason, or that's how they get their identity. Waste management was the party one. Whatever this event, I can't remember which one it was, and I feel terrible for that sponsor, but let's be honest, they're not paying attention anyway yet.
And it's gonna change.
This Barstool, whatever, when they did their coverage, it was fun, man. It was, there was an everyman sports take that was on brand for them, but they didn't sound like idiots. That's the one thing that sometimes you can get people who aren't familiar with the culture around a sport and they just fish out of water syndrome. No, these guys, obviously are professionals. They know what the fuck they're doing, especially up in the booth, but even down on the course, the more Joe Schmoes who started out like us, who now out there, with the microphone in their hand, chasing them down, they did a whole, and we talked about it. They did a whole spiel about one of the guys' whoop was going off. His heart rate was at like 188. And they're like, dude, we got it. I mean, but it didn't disrupt or distract from the game. And the players seemed to be, I'm sure there were some that were annoyed by it because there are probably some of the preconceived notions about whatever the sponsor, or, just if it's outside of their normal routine. But that event I think is going to jump out. But I'm talking about the Corn Ferry finale season finale. I just had to inform my roommate that there will not be a Grey's Anatomy release in the year of 2023. And her face went white. And she was like, why not? And I was like, the writer's strike, the SAG-AFTRA, strike. Come on, babe.
Which is funny. Because my TikTok, my Facebook, everything has been flooded with all these sequels to movies that we grew up with coming out next year, apparently. Did you see they're making a Twister 2? Well, they've already made it, and Helen Hunt's in it again.
Oh, I'm all right with that.
First of all, Twister 2, a movie that I'm all right with them making a sequel to with modern technology, because I think that is going to be, think of how good the first one was given the technology of the time for cinema, and what they can do now. I'm assuming that's going to be a fantastic special effect movie, I feel like, no matter how well Helen Hunt can or can't act anymore. So I'm here for that. I saw they're making a Beetlejuice 2. I'm
there for that.
With what's her name, the girl from Wednesday. I'm forgetting her name right now, but she's playing the young girl in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, Ortega.
Time. Yes, Ortega. There was a few others, but there seems to be this movement of, okay, there's a writer. I don't know if it has to do with the writer's strike, and this is their left hook to the writer's strike's right hook, where they're like, fine, we'll just remake all the movies that you all loved. It's
the actors too that are striking, so they can't make any of these things. That's part of it too, right? It's the writers and everybody on that side of it. Everything that you're talking about, I think, predates the strike, or there were some projects that were at a certain point, or they got special dispensation. There's a lot of, I guess, smaller productions that are applying for it and getting granted, I guess, whatever, go out, keep doing your thing because you can't afford to strike, and we get that, so keep producing. But no, it's like almost all the big shows, none of them are going to release anything this year, and it's starting to really hit home. These networks are starting to feel the crunch too. Well, because everybody's tuning into Fantasy Sports Corporation on YouTube and spending time with Divots and Pivots on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Jamie Gertz, fun fact, we're 43 minutes in. Jamie Gertz's kids went to the camp where I worked. Wonderful children, all three of the boys. Nice. There were three sons. They were wonderful kids. Love all of them.
Oh yeah, that was the other one I saw. That's Gladiator 2.
I'm here for that too. I saw
Gladiator 2 coming out with, I believe, Pascal. What's his name? Pascal.
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal. Thank you, Pat. He's if that what I saw was correct, he is the Gladiator for Gladiator 2. I believe
The pilot
that's
from
it.
the new Star Wars franchise is going to be
The
Gladiator
pilot.
2.
I see. I was confused when you said pilot. We're talking movies. I thought you meant like a freaking show pilot. Yeah, Twist. So Twister 2, they're just calling Twisters. Kind of. So it's gonna be the same kind of concept. A night of like. I mean, that was the whole kind of the point of the first Twist. Is it's just one night of multiple Twisters at the same time all over the place. It's gonna be the same concept. This is just they're all older. But still, I'm gonna watch it. I'm here for it. Of course, another Mission Impossible, Deadpool 3. I'm down for that too. There was another one in here. Oh, you know what it was? No, the one that I was thinking of. Finally, Doom Part 2 is going to come out too. I can't wait for that. The other thing I saw that Netflix is coming out with finally the Queen's Gambit 2, the second
That
season
I'm
of that.
incredibly excited for as well. This
Yes.
Gladiator 2 cast, I'm down for this. We get Russell Crowe in there. Denzel is making an appearance.
Oh, I
don't
didn't
know
see
if it's big or
Denzel was in
small.
it.
Pedro
Nice.
Pascal. I guess it's going to take place during the time of Emperor Caracalla, which for the Latin geeks out there, that should be fun. I'm one of them. I have to bone up on my Caracalla lore, but no, there's definitely some familiar faces in this. But cast of Gladiator 2 looks good. No, I mean, of course they're going to remake all the shit that was popular because now I mean, when we went beyond books, I mean, music's always been around, books, but like this digital and visual consumption and production of entertainment and content, you can't really overproduce in the sense that make too much because our attention spans are so short. But now we came of age and now we're at an age now where we have a little bit of coin. That's why do you think Blink 182 got back together? Why do you think
Right?
Nickelback is doing tours still?
Yeah, they know we'll pay the extra money to make them make it worth their while to come out of retirement.
Right. Why do you think Barbie was so freaking huge? Not because Barbie as a toy is necessarily such a successful hit amongst young people. You got generations and generations who've got some sort of connection to it. And so that's what we're seeing here too. I mean, Beetlejuice was something I grew up with, fucking loved it. I love me some Michael Keaton. I had a little thing for Winona Ryder after that. Who didn't?
I was gonna say, didn't we all?
2, I'm here for it. Mission Impossible. I mean, with AI
at this point,
I don't know if they're ever going to stop making them. It's just
and with Tom Cruise still doing like a lot of his own stunts, like it's outrageous what he's still doing. Like, the one from the last movie with the motorcycle off the cliff into the canyon, and he did that. Like, geez, that's just impressive. It's good stuff. So if you had to choose, your favorite movie of all time, 20 years later, if you had to choose a studio remaking it or making a sequel to it, what would you prefer, a sequel or a remake? Because I personally tend to hate remakes. They just seem to annoy me for some reason. But where do you lie?
I'm okay with remakes because, quite frankly, if there's only my English teacher talked about this back in the day. There's something like there's only 12 or 13 original storylines in all of human history.
100%.
Like everything falls into one of these 13 categories or 12 categories. I can't remember which one it is, says the former writing teacher.
But it makes sense.
So I don't mind a remake. I mean, I think your point's valid and I think the reason that a lot of people hate them is because it's hard to do a remake and do it well. I think that's the same thing. Same thing goes for music. Not all covers are a hit. I don't care what people say. Darius's cover of Wagon Wheel is a freaking abomination for Old Crow Medicine Show. And I know that wasn't even the original. I just think that's the best.
But see, I do like I'm all right with Darius's cover. I still like Old Crow's better, but I'm perfectly fine with Darius's cover of it.
I'm such a Hootie guy.
I think I'm a little more lenient when it comes to music than movies. Movies I'm much more of a stickler on, I feel like.
But when it comes to the movies, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Star Wars. They say that Episode 9 was it. We'll see until somebody buys the franchises and decides they want to make their couple billion or 100 billion at that point, whatever it's going to get inflated to. So I'm okay with the remakes. I think it's harder to, if something was good enough to be remade, then that bar is already kind of up there in theory. And so some of these Disney live action remakes, I'm pissed off about. The Lion King, they screwed up Be Prepared. They did. Now, by the way, the Timon and Pumbaa were fucking hilarious. Hakuna
Yeah,
Matata was
I was fine with
great.
that part.
They injected a new song with Beyonce, which wasn't really against because she can do no wrong. All hail
Yeah.
Queen Bee. But I would much rather see a remake than I would want to see a sequel or a continuation of a story. Because if the story was actually that good, then I don't want to. I think that's overstaying your welcome versus maybe, I don't know what a great analogy would be, but besides maybe running it back and performing that song again, that kind of take. I could listen to Hey Jude a million times, and I'm sure Paul McCartney could probably play it a million times, and it would sound slightly different every single time, but I could consume it because it's Hey Jude. So when it comes to the movies, I'm all about a remake, sequels, a little leery of it. Back to you in the studio.
I get it. Yeah, I guess when it comes to all that, remakes just tend to annoy me, but I fully understand your points and it makes sense. Quickly, did your Georgia Bulldogs play this past weekend on week 1? And
yeah,
it looks like
did.
they did. They won, but you said they have a pretty soft schedule. Oh God, UT Martin.
Charmin
Martin.
I'll be the first one to say it. I think I'm usually, for years and years and years, and especially if you saw the 2017 national title game where Tua on 2nd and 26 breaks our hearts and our backs. And without that play, I don't know if we know who Tua is, because not every Alabama quarterback gets that spotlight. But Jalen Hurts, who was dying in the second half, had to be bailed out. So I always have been like the hedging of the bets. But after we dodged a bullet with Ohio State this last year, New Year's Eve, clock strikes midnight, and that poor son of a bitch hooked that field goal. As soon as that happened, I got this rush of like confidence and almost like this weird, like, oh, it's fate and it's, it's meant to be.
Right.
Like that doesn't happen. I was like, feed me TCU. Those poor guys have no idea what they're in for.
So
and sure enough, we won like 65-7 or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah. And then TCU gets smoked by Colorado coming out the gate.
Coach Prime's out there talking about, I got receipts and everything. I love me some Coach Prime, and I love that he's not mine, because this is going to be a fun season to watch.
Did you see what he's doing, by the way, for his team? Instead of electing captains, he's electing
leaders and dogs.
Yeah, the L's and the D's. That's totally a thing he would do.
It's 21st century coaching. What's your brand? What's your value add? How can you help me not just become a better football player and, get some reps, but he's straight with his players. Not everybody's going to go to the NFL, period. Like, that's just how it is. That's the law of large numbers. So how can you get your bag when you can get your bag, whether that's NIL deals or being real with them and, helping them make connections? Deion's going to be a fun project to watch. But like I said, I'm just glad he's not my science experiment, because when it's all said and done, he can walk away. He is secure. I'm not challenging anybody's integrity. I don't want to be one of his receipts. Don't come at me, bro. I fucking love Deion Sanders. But I mean, I think you do, he was doing just kind of, this is me. This is my personality. I've always been flashy. I've always been out there. He was the original guy out there keeping it real, talking about if Detroit, thank God Falcons got me, because if Detroit drafted me, they were going to have to pay me so much money, they'd have to put me on layaway. That was like this is basically what he said about wanting to go play in Detroit. So I think that's going to be fun to watch, but I'm also very, very excited to see their first loss. It's going to happen. No coach goes undefeated.
Of course it's going to happen. They're not going to go undefeated. And someone the biggest loss of the weekend, someone who else isn't going to go undefeated, Clemson. Not just losing to Duke. Not just losing, getting embarrassed by Duke. And I say that because I don't even think it's that Duke necessarily like controlled the game and embarrassed them. What I saw was a Clemson team that kept choking it away. They had 2 blocked field goals, I think 2 turnovers within the 10-yard line, another one within the 30. Like, how do you can't do that? I don't get that. That seems like just a mental. We didn't respect Duke, and we thought we could just come in here at half-ass and win this game.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. Glad we can go.
Why not add a voice crack into tonight?
Yeah. No, I woke up this morning and I thought I like was seeing the score reversed. I had to refresh my phone a couple times. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, this just happened? And I'm glad they stormed the field. Good for them. Circling back real quick. Yeah. Georgia, just looking at this schedule, I'll be the first one to admit it. And I'm not going to hedge this year. We should repeat. I mean, I think outside of let me rephrase that. We should start 10-0. Like there's nobody, we got to finish at Tennessee, at Georgia Tech being a rivalry game. There's always that hub, that weird juju there. So I think we got to go 10-0. And then if, we stumble down the block, we still might get a sympathy vote, but win the East. And I think we're in the playoff again. And Carson Beck was great. Brock Graf was great. Vandergriff was great. So our quarterback situation seems to be strong. Our defense seems to be back. We slept walk through the first quarter and first part of the second quarter, turned it on in the second half. And it was kind of like, okay, it was a little kind of sleepy. So we got, Jesus though, Ball State, UAB.
I know. Georgia. I just pulled it up too. You're right. You don't really have anyone.
It's just no excuses, right? It's kind of one of those things. You can only play the teams that you have on your schedule that are in front of you. So don't screw it up. I circled back to Georgia because that's where we started before I wrote us right off the freaking rails. But the college football, the Duke Clemson game. Yeah. First time in 30 years that they beat a top 10 team, which God, salt in the wound was Clemson. And that was back when, fun guy, visor man, Steve Spurrier was actually coaching Duke. People often forget that was his first stop. I don't know if it was his first or second stop, but that was his stop before going down to Florida and becoming the Steve Spurrier that we all know and love. So that game was another one of those white courtesy phone, Dabo Sweeney, you got a call waiting for you. What's going on there? And sneaky good underneath that, his former quarterback. So DJ, he's got one of those long Hawaiian last names that I cannot pronounce. DJU is just what they kept on referring to him as. He was the guy that was supposed to be the next one at Clemson. And we all know how that turned out with the situation there. He ends up going out to Oregon State, has a pretty solid win over, it was San Jose State, but so he's out there kind of laughing maybe a little bit. What could have been had they had that guy under center instead of, but like you said, it was just sloppy. It was very not the caliber of football that we're used to. And Clemson's still in the ACC though. It is Duke. Who knows? Maybe they go on a run and they get the stars align for now. But no, that's even a bigger part. Like what happens?
But seriously, for now,
do you want this? Do you want this caliber of team in your conference if they're dropping games to Duke?
Yeah, Duke? It's a good point. I can't even follow all the reorganization of the conferences, and but I'm also not a very big college football fan anyway. So
you're gonna be. We're gonna get you there.
We'll see. My BC Eagles lost in overtime, 27-24. So bummer, right?
Well, this upcoming weekend, Georgia, like you said, has Ball State at noon, which isn't exactly something to circle the calendar about. I want to say the headline game is Texas. I want to say it's Texas, Alabama. Where we got 8:00. Tejas. Where are you, Texas? There you are. Texas at Alabama, 7:00 ESPN. This is a saucy game. Texas has got Quinn Ewers, who was at Ohio State until CJ Stroud at kind of came in and Ewers transferred out. He's down at Texas where Arch Manning decided he wanted to go. And then everybody thought, what do you mean? He's not going to be starting automatically. So they definitely have depth down there, and Texas coming to the SEC next year. This is going to be a game for generations to come. And when you talk about two of the biggest brands in the college football landscape, you have them not just in the same conference, but maybe in the same division. I think when they do a little bit of realignment next year, the SEC might they might simply add these teams to the East and the West respectively. I don't know who gets Oklahoma, who gets Texas, considering they're on top of each other. But there's also a rumor that they might do a whole reorganization and instead start doing this like cyclical, schedule where maybe you only have 3 teams that are anchor teams that you play every year. So like maybe for Georgia, it would be Tennessee and Florida and Auburn, and then the other games rotate and they open it up, that kind of stuff. And so there's rumors of that, but Texas, Alabama is going to be something to keep an eye on this weekend as well. So to educate yourself in the college football world, I want you, Andrew, to make sure you pay attention to the Texas, Alabama football game. And then next week, we'll talk a little bit more about the Ryder Cup and what's on the horizon.
That we will, because that is going to do it for us here tonight on Divots and Pivots here on the Fantasy Sports Corporation. Keep an eye out for the Plus Money Golf guys coming up soon. next. And I apologize if you can hear the AC in the background. It kicked back on right here at the end.
That's because of all your hot takes.
Sure. We're going to go out on that one. We will see you next week as we pivot into our Divots season and get ready for the Ryder Cup. We love you all. See ya.